Hi, my name is Bob Forster. I'm the CEO and founder of Phase 4 Scientific Training and Performance Center here in Santa Monica. And today we're going to talk a little bit about how we're working with mixed martial artists and creating a new paradigm for sports training and conditioning. You know, the problem's always been that wrestlers and fighters think that because their sport is so high intensity that they need to require high intensity training all the time. And it's just not true. Aishea and Aishea is the head of our Exercise Physiology department, and we've been training elite athletes in all sports for over 10 years. The techniques and science that we use to train athletes are very scientific in their approach. It's called periodization training, and it is probably the polar opposite of what most people are doing in MMA. Periodization training has proved to be the most effective training techniques because it's based on how the body responds to the stress of exercise. And even for other sports that are all-out, total body efforts like rowing and other running events, hurdling, etc., we find that if we build an athlete's fitness in a rational sequence, that they can get a much higher level of fitness, meaning that we're going to do a heart rate specific progression of their program. So what we did with Scotty Jorgensen, who's now going down to 125 pounds to fight after being a former belt holder at 135, is create a program that will simultaneously get him fit and also reduce his body fat, which of course is critical in MMA. So Aishea and I have traveled to Denver a couple times to test Joe Warren and other wrestlers and fighters at the Factory X Muay Thai gym. And under the guidance of Coach Mark Montoya, we've created a gym-wide training program based on this progression. Basically, we do a fitness test for every athlete, every fighter. We find out where they're fit, where they're not in the spectrum of energy production, and we start building a better aerobic base. Aishea is an expert in exercise physiology and helps guide them through their workouts and their diet, and basically, it's heart rate specific training for all the components of MMA. So it's in the beginning of the cycle, we're trying to develop a fat burning metabolism. This is going to be the foundation of all their fitness, even the anaerobic fitness that comes later. And doing so, we're having them on their wrestling, their grappling, their striking, their running, and even their weight training is all done at a specific intensity as determined by their VO2 test. And that very heart rate specific training program gets progressed through the seasons. So Aishea, could you explain a little bit about what happened with Scotty from his beginning test to his later test?
Okay. Well, this is Scotty's VO2 test. This is his first test that he did. And as you see here in this blue zone, that's where he's burning the most fat. So what we see is he's dropping in fat utilization at a heart rate of 110 beats per minute. When we did a periodization training with him, heart rate specific training, around 2 months later he retested, and what we see now is that blue zone is much, much larger, and he's not decreasing in fat utilization until a heart rate around 161. So if he's burning more fat at a higher intensity, he is going to be more efficient because he's not utilizing as much carbohydrate, and he's not burning out as quickly because he's using less or building less lactic acid. Okay, and then his recovery will be better in the long run.
So in a nutshell, we want to train fighters to be able to do more work at in a fat burning zone. The benefit of that is they're not burning carbohydrate and not producing lactic acid. So if Joe can go harder and harder, or Scotty Jorgensen in this case can go harder and harder in their training and still be burning fat and less carbohydrates, or producing less lactic acid.
Exactly.
And the big kicker is that when we have an athlete with a monster aerobic engine, that when they do go hard and burn carbohydrates and produce lactic acid, the aerobic system actually clears lactic acid. So our fighters are going to be able to coast a little bit and recover. In between rounds, they're going to come back much quicker and stronger. And then, as we said, the third great benefit of all this is that they're naturally going to be burning more fat. We call this a better butter burner. And therefore, their weight comes down naturally.
Exactly.
So without calorie restriction, which is not a good way to lose weight because you lose muscle and you lose a lot of energy, we've had Scotty following a very specific diet based on his numbers from his testing, that Aishea matched his calorie requirements from his testing to what he's really doing in real life during his training, and his weight has come down naturally without calorie restriction and of course without dehydration yet. At the end, we'll lose the last bit of weight through dehydration, but it'll be a much easier weight cut, and Scotty will be stronger. Scotty's fighting in December, and he's already walking around at a weight where he's within reach of making 125. So we're real happy with his results. And so is his coach, Mark Montoya, and Scott Jorgensen himself said his energy level is very high and his training is going great. So we're excited about introducing this new paradigm in sports training and conditioning to the MMA world. It's being used in all other sports, and it's about time that our sports, fighting and combat sports, gets a little bit more scientific in their training. So thank you, Aishea.
Thank you.
And good luck, Scotty.